Yo, 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 what is going on, COD Familia? It is your boy BN. Today, I hope you guys are going to enjoy this because this is something I can tell you I have a lot of experience in and on, and I'm going to show you some examples. Now, what are we going to talk about today? So, let's read this announcement that was just posted this morning, as of me recording this about 4 hours ago, where the Call of Dragons dev team is planning an online meeting with members of the community. Now, I have participated in one of these before, and I'm going to show you a private video recording I have of that meetup, just some stills, if you will, not to go through everything, of the first face-to-face dev community meetup that was in Infinity Kingdom that I participated in, along with a prep channel, and kind of explain a little bit of what that was and the benefits of that leading in, and then break down what my hopeful expectations are for this meeting and how it most likely may go based on a previous experience I've had. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you throw us out because I've said a lot. So let's read through the announcement, starting with, okay, so dear Lords, we're gathering feedback to better understand your in-game experience and suggestions. We will first collect basic player information and then invite around 20 players to complete a detailed questionnaire covering different aspects of the game so we can fully understand your feedback. Based on the results, a final group of players will be invited to join an online face-to-face meeting with the devs. Now, right, it says 20 players, right, to complete a detailed, right, and we're going to invite around 20 players to complete a detailed questionnaire covering different aspects of the game to understand feedback. Okay, so this, to me, I actually like how they're kind of doing this in phases. So the one that I participated in Infinity Kingdom, you kind of just submitted your name, right? So as an example, if I was to open this up, let's do this. Here we go. So let me show you this. So if we open this form up, you're going to see this is what the form looks like. So, right, the face-to-face meetup, it says applications are going to close on December 6th. So they're kind of giving you a little over a week to do this, right? You fill it out. And for me, right, I filled out all of this. So I've already submitted mine, right? Now, I based mine off of, at the time when I was in 65, when it had started. And I'll tell you what I filled out here for this, right? I rated this as a 2 because they're asking about recent in-game experience. So I don't think the recent in-game experience is god-awful. I don't think it is amazing by any means. I think if we're being objectively fair, I think rating it, depending on who you are, I think a 2 or a 3 is appropriate if I'm being fair on both sides. And obviously there's a number of reasons why I rated it as such. And then obviously you're listing out games. Are you willing to participate in an interview? Yes. Okay. So the thing I like here that they're doing in phases is because when I participated in the Infinity Kingdom dev meetup, that one, you just submitted your name. It was just the submission and then they selected from the pool. I actually like that they're doing a level of due diligence here and making it so if you're selected based on the initial pool that submits this application, they're going to ask a number of people to write up something detailed. And the reason I like this is because it is a way to filter out the people who are just going to say, you need to fix this, your game sucks, do it now or I'm quitting. On top of this, it also allows an opportunity for people that are able to articulate themselves in a professional, well-rounded manner to a point where the devs are going to be able to actually take something away from that interaction, from that level of communication, the quality of communication. So I appreciate that. And of course, I think like anyone, right, you'd love to be selected. I can tell you I would love to be selected because I think I have a little bit more of an out-of-the-box insight on top of being able to cover a number of topics, even though there are some topics I may not be well-versed in, and that's fine. One of the things I loved about what the Infinity Kingdom Dev Q&A meetup did is they picked people that were from different areas of the game. And it wasn't like they only picked people that were the top fighters, or they only picked people that were kings or queens in the game, or they only picked people that were high spenders, right? They really rounded it out. And that was one of the things I appreciated. It was kind of like a buffet line of diversity. And I felt like that really helped, because when we did the Dev Q&A meetup, and I'll show you some stuff from that here in a little bit, not everyone had a detailed level of insight for every topic. But on the topics that they did, they were incredibly valuable. And that is what I'm hoping is going to be a main takeaway from something like this, is that the opportunity for that should be there. I don't believe that you need to be amazingly well-versed in everything, but if you can provide quality insight that can impact potential future change in selected areas that you are very knowledgeable and experienced in, that's great. And I think that should be valued. That should be sought after as well. So, okay. They're doing this. Applications like we know we're going to close. Okay, for those who are not selected, right, you can still submit feedback. Okay, great. Let me show you some examples now of what the Infinity Kingdom meetup was like when we did the Dev Q&A. And again, I'm not going to show everything. I'm sure maybe some people, if you're interested, maybe I would make the video public or unlisted. This is a recording that I have from a long time ago, right? But let me show you now what I have. So this was recorded on March 23rd, 2022. You could see here the time, a little over 3 hours. So I recorded the entire meeting, right? Just again, for my own purposes, right? There was never any intent, right? Keep in mind, this was over 3.5 years ago. Never was any intent to share this. And this was because at the time, they said that we could talk about this, but that we couldn't share anything. Now, I don't remember signing anything at the time, right, that said that. So I don't think there's, statute of limitations is probably gone past at this point. But if there's anyone from the Infinity Kingdom community and you're seeing this and you're interested, reach out. Again, maybe I might make it unlisted if people want to take a look at it. We'll see. I might have to also reach out to the IK team, right, just to be like, hey, is it okay if I share this now, given it's 3.5 years old? Right, but you might see a familiar face on here. Oh, hang on, let me maximize this, right, so it's a little bit bigger. You might see a familiar face on here, which is my boy Jesse Poo, right, Jesstar, here, and right, who was again over in IK. And I think he was in BXS at one point for CallofDragons. I don't know if he's still there, but right, that's a familiar face. There's some other people too as well. I don't know if Ray. I don't know if that was Ray Cloud or someone else. Lily Ray, I know, was another person too as well there. Anyways, this is what the room looked like. So to break this down, right, it was a private Discord that you got invited to. And I think there was 8 or 10 of us, if I recall correctly. And so you could see there was a waiting room. You had server rules. There was an agenda that was posted on kind of what the outline was going to be for the meeting. It was about a 3-hour meeting, of course. And then we had a meeting room, main topics, representative rooms. And then these are like discussions before meetings, right, that you could have as a way to maybe organize some thoughts. So you can see here, right, and I'll give you this, so we're at 2340. So this was an example of a question that was asked about the IB tournament. And you can see I had posted something. Jez replies and says, okay, I'd like to see some sort of expansion to what BN said in number 1. Right, Lily says, I agree with point 1. The more we can see global rankings, right, point 2, I also think this will create a strong movement. For question 1, we will have game-wide ranking board, let all servers know how the tournament is going. Right, and then, but you can see like my answers to the IB question, or sorry, my question to the IB topic that was put out. And then in the beginning, you can see it was mainly just like, oh, hey, right, hello guys, right, this was one of the reps over there. Welcome to the first round table discussion today. 6 representatives. So I said 8 to 10. So there's 6 people that were there. And our devs who to discuss main changes in the game and players' feelings about it. And I will say this, the thing that I really appreciated about the meeting was that they covered multiple topics. It wasn't just focusing on one topic or another. And you could see here in the other, like COR, Contention of Relics, this was basically an event that you would play in your home kingdom to decide who was going to be king or queen. And you'd have I think it was 3 stages it was split into, and you had to basically win enough points and be at the top of the leaderboard across this like multi-day event, and then you would be king or queen. very different, right, in that sense compared to what we're used to. There was also 3 factions that you would have. I think it was blue, green, and red. I'm forgetting what the names were that you'd have. And just imagine if you had 3 different factions you had to choose between, but you could only join alliances that were a part of that faction in Infinity Kingdom. But if that was in COD, like that would just be wild, right? Just it was very different. And so then you had like KVK related topics, IB related topics, other events, bundles related, right? So people that were spending could obviously give some input on bundles. And again, I did appreciate that. And I'm hoping that in this meetup, they do something similar where you have multiple main topics that you can touch on, or multiple main fields of play that are game related that you can have discussions on. Because I do think it's important to talk about those things, even if it may not be what is the hottest topic right now, which obviously is surrounding decorations, right? First and foremost. And then, of course, there's a number of other things too as well. But I just hope that something like that happens. But you can see here a lot of like people just start off by introducing themselves. As an example, oh, hang on, let me go here, right? So bam, some introductions, and then, right, you see a question that was asked, right? So here, so wait, where is it? Let me go back, because they asked something about IB that you'll see here in a sec. So IB was players changing. Wait, hang on, where is it? Let's go back a little bit here. Here we go. So this is where the first question was asked from. Let me scoot back a little. I think it was, yeah, Junin. So, right, thanks for the introduction. And then there's, okay, for PvP gameplay, right, we're concerned about this, best to optimize battle reports. We've added several new features. The lores in the following versions in the next several months will bring you some functions such as what players mentioned before, the Illusion Battlefield or IB tournament. It's something like Throne of the Supreme, but for alliances, not for individuals. We've also noticed some difficulties we may meet. Okay, for players concerned about that, if you have any questions about the new function, we can have around 15 minutes for this. So you can see how they bring up a topic, they allow you a little bit of time to ask questions, give feedback, and then they'll answer as well, and then you move on to the next one. And like I said, I'm not going to show everything, but I just wanted to give you guys an example about how it looked. Now, to throw something else out there, I want to also explain one of the things that I did that I thought was very impactful, right? That at least helped in some regards. So this was a roundtable prep chat. I still have this Discord too as well, right? You could see here, March 21, 2022, right? I started this pretty early. And even though the main meetup channel, Discord, had topics that you could touch on, it didn't have as many, right, as I thought would have been impactful. And on top of which, some players may have just felt more comfortable having discussions in kind of more of an unofficial-ish capacity, right? Just not being on the dev meetup Discord to have those conversations. They might have felt more comfortable. We ended up having a lot of people. I think everyone that was a part of this did join at the time. And we had some very, like, you could see the bar right here, right on the side. There was a lot of conversation that happened here, which was great. And you can see part of the reason why I did this, right? I said, right, I'm typing things up for topics I am familiar with to give feedback and generate possible questions to ask. Though I imagine not everything we provide has to be a specific question, as I'm sure we can just give feedback and that will count. I said, this is not necessarily to take away a conversation from the Roundtable Discord, which again was the Dev Meetup one. However, I think it is important that we try to organize ourselves so we do not end up wasting our questions or feedback that we give to the dev team. By vetting what we say more or less before everyone gives their shares, we can be more efficient in what we give and get out of the meeting. And this is what I was hinting at in the beginning of the video. It's very important that you make sure what you're going to say has depth to it. And you'll notice, right, again, as an example, when I had first given my initial response to that IB topic, I had a really good idea on what I was going to say. And on top of which, it's also a matter of like there was a number of things I can tell you that I would type out beforehand. So I would have like some templates that was on a side notepad. And the templates, I would have already had written out questions based on hot topics that I already knew were in the game, depending on the field of interest, right? So if it was KVK related, if it was Kingdom related, if it was IB related, if it was something else, right? And that way I already had something typed out so I could make the fastest and most use of the time. So depending on how the question was asked or how a question was worded, If I needed to go in and do maybe some minor edits, I could. If I didn't need to do any minor edits, then I could copy and paste and put it right there. Now, that's how I approached it. And I also wanted to help as many people that we could so we can make the most use out of the meeting that we were going to have. And I think a lot of people appreciated that. And I do feel that it helped the meeting go a lot smoother overall. And I'm not saying that it was like, the most massive thing to do, but for me, I felt from an organizational standpoint, it helped out a lot. So again, regardless of how things end up, do I think that, and obviously getting to maybe the end thing here, right? Because some people will be skeptical on this. Some people will think, well, when they mean online meeting with the devs and they say something like face to face, right? Some people might view that as, okay, we're going to get into a video call. It is more likely. Now, would that be great if a voice call and or a video call happened? Cool. Sure, why not? But in most likely, and this is what I heard from the Infinity Kingdom team, because they were also international, a number of them were internationally based. The reason they did it via text was for translation purposes, and then also for just text records as well. And it made a lot of sense to me. And so that's why I think most likely this is probably the format that they will go with, or the medium they'll go with to communicate. Now, if they do more than that, awesome, that would be cool. Right? Like if everyone could get in a voice call and be on video and still type, okay, dope. But I think we should have realistic expectations when this happens. So yeah, again, listen, regardless, and I'll say this, regardless if I'm selected or not, I just hope that they do some of these things and implement them. So that way in this first official meetup, you can try and get the most out of it. That's what I had always hoped for, even in the Infinity Kingdom meetup face-to-face that we did with the devs, was that let's at least move the needle a little bit, right? Let's have a good showing. Let's be respectful and professional and courteous, hopefully on both sides, to where we can invite the opportunity to maybe do another one in the future, right? I think having good relationships with your community, because from the dev perspective, if I was a developer and I made a game, I would like to believe that the features I'm implementing, the things that I'm doing is in my vision amazing, right? Like these are going to be great features, or at least they have great intent behind them. And sometimes it can be difficult to kind of swallow one's pride and be willing to go out there and ask people for their feedback or their thoughts. And to me, I feel like the greatest takeaway is understanding that something that you developed and you created may not always be how the community utilizes it. Your intent for how a game is to be played may not necessarily be what the real time or real-like actions that are implemented by a player base, by a community, right? Like they might play the game, they might use what you have and view it more as a sandbox, a foundation, but then they end up playing it in a different way than maybe you had originally intended. Now, as a developer, do you view that as being wrong or incorrect? Okay, maybe. But the other side of it is that the game either evolved or the direction of play changed based on the tools that were provided. And even if something isn't being done the way that you intended, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad or it's great. But I do think those are things that you have to be able to appropriately assess and analyze, and then look at, okay, well, hey, did it just end up being so much better for the community the way they're doing it now? And maybe they're utilizing something in a way that we hadn't even thought of before, and this is great, let's kind of go with that. Or no, this is actually really bad and it's not good. And we're seeing that also in the feedback from the community. Let's adjust this because maybe it's just not allowing the community to play it out or to utilize this thing in the way that we had intended, right? So maybe we need to do some fine tuning or some course correction. I just hope that, again, it's a good first opportunity and that people take it seriously, because it is something that I think can be impactful. I can tell you in my closing notes here that when we finished the first Dev Q&A meetup, there was a small handful of things that did come out of that were implemented and or changed or addressed. So, and this doesn't mean that everything did, right? It was like the majority of things were, from my recollection. But there was some things that did come out of that where you could look back and say, okay, well, there was some value there, Like there was some changes, there was some positive progression that occurred in the game that came out of that first face-to-face dev meetup that we did in Infinity Kingdom. So, right, I'm curious what you guys think, though. Again, I know I've been kind of rambling and showing off or showing off some of these things and talking about my experience, but I would love to know kind of what your hopes are, especially if you're someone who participated in maybe a dev face-to-face or a meetup or a conversation between devs and the community in a different game. I'd love to know what your experience was like. How did that go? On top of which, if you're someone who's watching this, what are your hopeful expectations for this meetup? Do you share some similar thoughts to me? Do you have different ones? Let me know in the comments below. That's it for me. As always, until next time, we'll catch you later.